everyone, and welcome to the latest Simon Akers Group Movers and Shakers. Tobias Waltham here, Partnership Engagement Director. I've got a real treat for you today. Normally we only have one Movers and Shakers, but today, as you can see, we've got two. Malcolm Scott from the KBSA and Owen Harrison from Der Kreis. Congratulations on the job. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you both?
Yeah, great to be here. Yeah, thanks, Tobias.
Thank you for joining us on the sofa. Collectively, between the two of you, you have been in the industry for a lot of time.
How many years you got, Malcolm?
Nearly 40.
So it's 70 between the two.
70 between the two of you. Add me, that's almost 100 between the three of us. That's really, really shocking. How did it, just before we get into it, how did you two get into the industry? Malcolm, you go first. How did you get into it?
I started as a plumb centre trainee.
Okay.
Went on to a company called Powerhouses in Nottingham, which was a huge retail showroom and a builder's merchant. Single site location, 20 odd years ago, doing 60 million a year.
Wow.
It was an enormous business. Went on to Waterline from that, and then went to Swift and KBSA.
And here you are.
So the whole period has been the home improvement sector.
Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And yourself?
My dad worked for the local electricity board.
Okay.
And he got me a part-time job wheeling washing machines into people's cars on a Saturday and a Sunday.
Fantastic, and that's how it started. You never left.
That's how it started.
Is it? This industry is like that, isn't it? You just sort of start somewhere, and no matter how you try, you never leave, do you? You absolutely never leave. I don't want to put both you gents on the spot, but for all of our listeners and all our followers on LinkedIn, I'd love for you to talk a little bit about what Der Kreis do and why retailers should join Der Kreis and the same with the KBSA, Malcolm, if that's okay.
Okay. Do you want me to start?
Why not? Yeah.
Okay. So looking back at the plumb centre days, when I talk to a new person about the KBSA, I say it's, if you're a plumb centre branch manager, you look after the shop. Everything else is looked after by someone else. You ring personnel department, you ring legal department. Our job was to provide all of the services that a retailer needs so that he can concentrate on running his business. And that includes helping with generating sales leads, general advice, everything from insurance to any service that they may need. We should be able to provide it.
Yeah, and at a grassroots level, our business is about the independent sector, both the KBSA and KBBG. It's quite a lonely business being an SME or a family business out there operating in our sector. And I think what KBSA and KBBG do is give a sense of belonging.
Okay.
So we're there first and foremost to help them remain competitive, and to provide the services. But secondly, we provide a sense of community. Both KBBG and KBSA does that.
Yeah.
So it's more important than ever, given the difficulty in successfully running a business these days, an independent business, that you have that little bit of competitive advantage. And I really think that both KBBG and KBSA, they really deliver a little bit of competitive advantage.
Absolutely.
And just for clarity, the KBSA is the Kitchen and Bathroom Specialists Association, kitchen, bedrooms and bathrooms, and the buying group is part of the Der Kreis network.
So we're the kitchen, bathroom buying group, part of Der Kreis, which is we're the UK's largest independent buying group for kitchen specialists.
Yeah.
Only focused on kitchen specialists, and we're part of a wider business that has about 4,000 members through Europe.
Fantastic. I mean, you both talked about it a little bit then, or you went on to it, and it sort of segues wonderfully into my next question really, is you talk about the market, you both talk about the market back then and actually how it is now. I mean, where do you see, say, the next 6 months of 2025, or very early doors, where do you think we're going to be, where do you think retailers specifically are going to be headed in the next 6 to 12 months?
Well, I think it's steady. There's no boom or bust, it's a steady progress, and it's all about good management, careful planning, and avoidance of unnecessary risks.
Yeah, okay. Fantastic.
I think that's a very good assessment. I think that we've had the reconciliation of that big COVID boom.
Yeah.
So we've all paid that correction in the market over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
And I think that we're now back into a stable market which has the much smaller growth or decline risk than we've seen since COVID. So I think that people need to be prudent, behave correctly to generate the right amount of leads for their business and manage their costs.
Yeah.
And I think that when things settle a little bit geopolitically, then maybe the confidence comes back to the consumer. We see the housing market increase, and we all know that it nearly always begins with the housing market in the UK.
Absolutely. It's really interesting what you just said then, actually, is about that reconciliation after COVID, because I do think perhaps this industry is very guilty of much like people on mortgages with really quite low % interest rates. People got used to that being the norm, but it's not. It does feel like it's getting back to those sort of peaks and troughs of this industry, and people need to adapt to those. I mean, how can the KBBG and how can the KBSA assist? What do retailers need? What will you give retailers tools-wise to circumnavigate the next year or so?
Do you want to start this time?
So we deal with about 47 fantastic suppliers. KBBG Der Kreis, we have a fantastic team in the UK that services just the independents. So our job, if you like, is to provide the very best buying conditions, the very best independent advocacy or advice if needed for those businesses, and to provide market intel and relevant information to help our members really advance beyond and have successful businesses. So that's really our reason to be. It's very simple in that sense. And then the association does something very different again.
Yeah.
So our job is to create consumer confidence for our suppliers, for our members, should I say, through things like Trustmark, which is the government approved purchase scheme, and to create a stable platform for them through the advice and guidance and the national deals that we do on everything from insurance to tax to laptops to vehicles, everything basically.
Absolutely. So just working with your partners and building working partnerships to support each other.
The reason that both of us are sitting together is the two organisations complement each other so well. The KBSA provide the advice and guidance, and Der Kreis provide the right prices so that people can buy at the right price to resell. So the two organisations really do work very well together.
We're both acting 100% on behalf of the independent retailer, actually. That's really true, Malcolm.
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about that actually earlier on, didn't we? What I looking at it objectively as an industry partnership, I don't believe there's as much joined up thinking in this industry as there needs to be. However, this partnership, Der Kreis and the KBSA, is really pushing that. This is actual joined up thinking about supporting the industry.
Yeah, Malcolm's been a great champion throughout his whole career for independence. So I think that there's no better person either to vocalise that to the trade.
No, absolutely, fantastic. You guys have been in the industry a while, collectively, 70 years. Is there someone or something, an example of a learning journey that someone or something has undertaken in this industry that you particularly admire at all?
For me, it's really just the fact that a large proportion of the KBSA members are second or third generation.
Yeah.
And it's really interesting to see that they're bringing youngsters on that we don't really notice. It's their family, and they are training them up. And those people, and given my age, I've seen some of them as trainees who are now managing shops and who are now senior fitters and whatever. So it's just good to see people developing.
Yeah, absolutely, fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, we've seen actually several people in our industry, luminaries, who have really created foundational growth and change. So there's probably a few people that spring to mind who created transformational change in our industry, be it by a product introduction or transforming a business that may have been suffering and then turning it around. There's a couple in particular who I'll long remember, who they've kind of mentored and I've taken something from. I think really when you see those changes in the business, it's asking how they did it.
Yeah.
And I guess one thing they've all shared in common is this overwhelming belief in their plan. If you could achieve anything without any obstacles, what would it be? And they've done it.
Yeah.
And I think there's.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say they've all built super teams around them that think the same way as they do.
Yeah.
Teamwork.
And Stephen at Cookers is a perfect example of that. He's built a team of people that think like him, and they've developed a really good business in a product category that no one even considered 20 years ago.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think
Absolutely,
in the same graph. So Christophe, when he went into Cosentino, Christophe Gontier, he added, I think he took 20 times the turnover. He literally multiplied the turnover by 20, and we were a marketplace of laminate worktops, and he turned it into a solid stone worktop.
Yeah.
So but the impact of that for retailers and for the marketplace is if you add the two things together, the increase from an ordinary tap to a hot tap, and the increase from a laminate worktop to a solid worktop, the impact is phenomenal in the industry. It's increased the transactional value by a third in the kitchen.
Whilst delivering a better product,
which everyone's happy with.
A boiling tap or a sintered stone worktop, they're beautiful things, and they add value to the kitchen.
Yeah, they're absolutely stunning. Both the products, they're sort of anatomically and aesthetically perfect, aren't they? In every way, shape or form. So yeah, absolutely. I love what you said about just having good people around you. I think that's something, sometimes when you're working on a project or a product or in a company, you can sometimes feel like it's quite insular.
And sometimes it is just about making the environment right and looking after the staff. Because again, using the example of Waterline, they've always paid very good wages and they've always got very good staff. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
stay with them for a very long time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and great teams, and young people, they bring new thinking, they challenge, some of the more mature parts of the industry. But one of the reasons we've been here today with you, Tobias, is Malcolm and I and Simon talking about the apprenticeship, a lack of skill in our marketplace. So Malcolm is right. You bring an apprentice into your team. And you suddenly expand your thinking again. So it's all about good teams. It always comes down to people.
So Owen, you mentioned apprenticeships there, and Malcolm, young people. Apprenticeships is something that obviously at Simon Akers Group we're incredibly passionate about. But what would you say to a company to encourage them to start employing younger people or more apprenticeships?
Well, I think firstly you have to attract the younger people, and we're just the same as any other industry. We need to try to make it appear as interesting as possible to any possible candidate. Otherwise, we won't attract them.
Yeah.
And it is an industry which engages in IT, because design is very IT led. So it's got some interesting modern things about it, which we probably don't talk about. And in terms of the salary, I bet there's no school leavers would consider that in our industry they can make more money than in general retailing, for example. The salaries and the remuneration are high for skilled people, and they're not boring jobs. They're creative, they're interesting. There's an awful lot of people go to university to study arts and crafts and things like that. Where are they going to get a job? Why not be a designer? Why not be a creator of kitchens? Why not get involved in this kind of sector?
Yeah. We work in a wonderful industry. Mark was absolutely right. From architectural input to sales input to just designing and transforming spaces. Kitchens are where it all begins in every house, as we all know. So if you're part of that journey to delivering an exceptional product, and I firmly believe that our sector delivers an exceptional product, then this is something we all need to kind of shout more about to attract people out of university or school into our sector.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. I actually, I'm an advocate for the KBB sector. I think I agree with you both. I think it's a lot sexier than people think, and some of the design, and you only need to look at the Articads or Sinclays of this world to see actually how good some of the technology is out there. So I completely agree. And the salaries, you can earn an incredibly good living in the kitchen industry, be it as a designer, and or a kitchen fitter.
Yeah, and does it matter as an industry? Yes, it does matter, because quality of life is important, and your kitchen and your bathroom and your bedroom are important to the quality of your life. So it's not an insignificant industry.
That's true.
Yeah, and we're fighting for share of voice from other sectors who want to draw in this new talent as it leaves school or university. Yeah. So we just need to have a better way of uniformly vocalising that to school leavers or university leavers to get them into KBB sector overall. Absolutely. And it could be, there's so many facets to it.
Yeah, and I think also it's difficult with apprenticeships because the word is now used to cover all training. I think we almost need to differentiate and say trade apprenticeships and other training, because the other training we actually, I guess, we're as successful as anybody in getting people in. It's the trade apprenticeships that we've struggled with. And I think the first step to that is to identify what is a trade apprenticeship. You know, we talk at length about apprenticeships, and that could be an accounts apprenticeship, or we really need to be quite clear about what we're talking about.
Yeah, run the channels and just tell people exactly what it is that they're applying for. I think that's probably some value in that as well.
Absolutely. I mean, between the two of you, can you relay an experience that you've had where you've seen an apprenticeship at work, or you've seen a company go through that apprenticeship journey at all?
I mean, I can hop in and say that one of my experiences was with Stonehams Furniture.
Oh, Stonehams, yeah.
So family-owned business in Kent, multi-generational, and they firmly embraced the Bucks University course. And I saw, one designer in particular who went through that education process, and by the time she completed, high level of confidence in her own ability, but more importantly, in exceptional talent.
Yeah.
And she's still in that business now. And my exposure to that was, the confidence it brings from coming through that stewardship of working with brilliant people. Johnny Gray, Craig Metzen, there's been some fantastic people involved in this. This is something that actually should be embraced and enlarged in different sectors. So it's a real pity for me that particular course is finished, because for me that was a fantastic example of how good we can be.
Yeah. So
once again, it lives or breathes by people supporting it. So we have to want to support this within our own industry for it to succeed. And I think that the general boost now around apprenticeships, and a lot of the talk is around installation, because that's obviously where the big skills gap is. But in a generation's time, we'll have gaps across all areas of our business. So really, we need to start thinking about what 5 years or 10 years looks like in our sector.
That's a really, really good point. So you talked about we have to. Who in your eyes is responsible then for the apprenticeships, for bringing those young people in? Is it the manufacturers, the retailers, associations? Is it all of us?
It's everybody. It's everybody from the schools up.
And
it's convincing people that it is a good career choice. My nephew is a time-served kitchen fitter, has been fitting kitchens for the last 20 years. When he was younger, as soon as he had his papers, it was enormously flexible. He started off in central Scotland, wanted to have a spell in London. He could get up there and get work, no problem. He's moved back to Scotland, but it's a good career, it pays well, and it's very flexible because there's demand for it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's up to everybody in education and everybody in industry to just talk more about it and just let people know there is an opportunity here.
Yeah.
By the time they're in their mid-20s, we've missed the opportunity. Malcolm's right. We can get to school, get grassroots, start talking to 15, 16-year-old potential school leavers or those going into higher education, and really make them consider our KBB sector as a potential place for their flair. And if they have flair, then we should really be trying to catch them at that point as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And trade apprenticeships are like all other apprenticeships. And like all training, if you look at the businesses that are most successful in the long run, it's the people that look to the future. They don't just look at what's happening today. They say, oh yeah, I've got a 5-year plan, or I've got a 10-year. Now you can't plan everything, but you can plan some basic things, like making sure that if somebody's due to retire, you're already working on replacing them.
Yeah.
So there are some simple things that.
Yeah. Do you yourselves have any practical advice on how to retain young people in this industry?
I would say make sure that they feel like they're part of the team. Get them involved. When the training's finished, it isn't finished. There's always more. Keep them involved, even short bursts of training. Send them to manufacturers' events. Send them to get them as heavily involved in the business as possible. And don't pay them peanuts.
Yeah.
Pay them a sensible wage and they'll stay with you. And in the long run, that's a sound investment, because if you don't do that, you end up recruiting over a period of 10 years 6 different people. You've got all the disruption, just take the cost up front and get on with it, and just treat them well, pay them well, and get on with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the best examples I've seen, they've been really involved in the business, and the owners or the business managers have involved them, helping them break down silos and get involved in all different aspects, meet all of the suppliers, meet the clients, And really, I think if they've got that sense of involvement, then they'll want to stay
part of the team.
Yeah. So just incorporate them into the industry. So douse them.
Just don't put them in a desk in the corner. In a narrow job. Give them their opportunity to show you their flair.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you may find that they'll develop in all sorts of ways that you didn't expect. You can't tell someone's skills until you let them try.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Actually, I think it's. We are blessed, I think, in the KBB industry to have some phenomenal awards. For example, there's 3 or 4 a year that are all free to enter, and I don't think enough companies actually do enter these awards. And you've got these young people with all these flair and probably stunning designs that may not be getting probably the credit or the shout that they deserve. Do you think apprenticeships and young people get enough coverage in the press? Do you think the industry press could be doing more?
Well, I'm going to say what you did at KBSA at last year's conference with Young Design is probably the best example I've seen in the last few years of recognising talent.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And we, I think you gave out some special recognition certificates as well for those that hadn't quite won, but had wowed the judges.
Runner-ups and
So there's no disenchantment that I didn't win.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Still recognising them as exciting and talented. It goes back to that thing that you're both saying.
Yeah, I mean the ways that you can develop talent and the things that media can do is to have programmes such as the Best Young Person of the Year, which people do have, in fairness, they do exist.
Yeah.
And I benefited from one many years ago. I was the Wolseley Young Person of the Year some 40 years ago, and I got a month in America for it.
Oh, nice.
So it was really good, but it was the recognition among your peers, I'm not saying everybody can afford to send someone away for a month.
Yeah.
But the recognition was really important. You felt like the organisation really needed you and wanted you.
Yeah, and it's giving that confidence, isn't it? And something like that, it really gives somebody the confidence to think that their input matters.
Yeah.
Because far too often, especially in today's increasingly digital first, young people are not leaving school with the same level of social interactions as some of us older folk.
Yeah.
So really hearing or feeling from their employers or the industry that they're worth it, they're doing well.
Yeah, that we're all in it together. We're all in the same boat, aren't we? So, gents, I don't want to keep too much of your busy time. I know you're incredibly busy people, but before we wrap up, have either of you got an amusing story from the industry at all that you want to that you can share, or from your respective fields in a previous job?
Well, we've obviously got to talk about end customers. We can't talk about trade partners.
Yes, it's very difficult.
I reckon most of the audience, especially if they're operating in retail environment, will realise that that dealing with the general public comes with its own joy.
Yeah.
So lots of times over my years in manufacturing, I've been out to look at appliances that either aren't working or there's a low level of consumer satisfaction, only to find out it's completely being used incorrectly. My favourite one from recent times was looking out to a very premium downdraft product in induction venting, and it wasn't working as expected. And of course what happened is they had the vent completely closed off. So every time they used it, they're turning it on and sucking the cover just onto the motor. But I think that anybody who deals with the general public will have a myriad of stories.
Yeah, and on that sort of thing, I remember as a Franca distributor, you do the initial inspections if a client's got a problem.
Yeah.
And I went out to a sink for a gentleman who'd been a trade unionist for many years and was an engineer, and he was complaining that the sink was new and there were scratches on it. And he had a high power torch, and he was walking his way around saying, "Look, I can see scratches." And I had to say to him, it's not a piece of jewellery. If you switch that high power flashlight off,
You won't see them.
you won't see them. And sure enough, he switched off, you didn't see them. He said, "Well, yeah, but the scratches there." I said, "No, there isn't." It's only what the natural eye can see.
My days.
We'll let this one run for afterwards, but I also went to a client's hobby, wanted to be shown how to use it. And I went to touch it. No, you don't touch that. I do. So okay, no problem, sir.
Yeah.
The customer's always right.
Yeah,
That's always right. Well, look, both thank you so much for your time, not just now, but just in everything that we've discussed today. Owen, congratulations on your new role. I am really happy and excited for you. I think I speak on behalf of the whole industry. We're really excited to see where you take the KBBG.
Well, I'll jump in. We've got great customers, so great members, great suppliers. I've got a great team, and we work with some great other businesses. So thank you, Tobias. Yeah, I think that it's not going to be the easiest of years for anybody in this industry, but we're in it together.
Yeah,
and we'll succeed together.
Absolutely. Well, look, thank you so much for your time, Malcolm.
Thank you.
And Owen, thank you very much. Really excited to see where this partnership goes, and see where you can both take your respective companies. So thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Tobias. Thanks, Malcolm.